Hey, and welcome into the Four Verticals Podcast, episode 141, here on this November 4th, 2025, high atop a beautiful Jacksonville, Florida. Was debating before we got the show started today about what we were going to do in regards to the Tuesday poll, where the teams we ranked and whatnot. We'll do that here in a little bit, because, of course, tonight is the first night of the college football playoff committee releasing the rankings tonight, which may or may not matter. We're a lot of debate amongst us in the room here. Maybe there's someone else in here with me, but a lot of debate amongst those in the room with me about what our top 10 or what our top 25 should look like. But some heated debates going on, but we got through just fine. Of course, we are covering a lot of things going on. College football, excuse me, week 11 picks, the Tuesday poll, coaching carousel news, Marvel news to talk about, which I haven't discussed in a while. And that's the show, right? I mean, the Bucs are off this week, so they'll be playing on the Sunday against the Patriots. A huge game there. But yeah, we have a lot of things to discuss, a lot of things to cover. So, of course, if you're new here, be sure to subscribe to the channel. Again, make sure you subscribe, like the streams, like the videos. This is all free. This is completely free of charge. I don't talk to advertisers. This is completely independent media. So make sure you do all of that. And make sure to follow us on X, Instagram as well. Finally, some content on there. Did a little quick video. Try to do those every single weekend, by the way, if I can, in the mornings. But yeah, Instagram also should be in the link on YouTube, and be sure to follow over there and on Spotify as well. So real quick here, just to make sure you actually hear me on YouTube. I know on Spotify, audio is a little different. Of course, we're using the new clip-on microphone here, new technology we've had. This is our second show we're doing it, so just to be sure, YouTube audio is working fine. Let me listen to myself real quick. Okay, guys, you can hear me. All right, good. So let's go ahead, go back to my notes here. And all right, that's not my notes. That's StreamYard. Coaching Carousel update. A lot of news going on there with Coaching Carousel. We had a lot of jobs open. Of course, there's multiple ones now open. Auburn opened up on Sunday. LSU's been open. Florida's been open. Penn State, Virginia Tech. Those are sort of the big ones. I know, like Colorado State and Oregon State are open, but no one really cares about those. We care about really those, was it now 6, I believe now? 5 or 6? Those 5. So let's start with Auburn here and I guess sort of recap what jobs are open and which jobs or job is about to open. And first one is of course, Auburn. They made the announcement official Sunday. Hugh Freeze has been relieved of his duties. DJ Durkin will be the interim head coach. He will also be considered for the full-time position if need be. And be interesting to see, too, because they play Vanderbilt this Saturday in Nashville. It'll be interesting to see sort of how the team responds, right? I know that I'm not trying to sell you Mike Norvell here, but how they respond, right? How does this team sort of look like going forward now with this, the cloud, if you will, this dark, foggy cloud lifted up from Auburn. And now those guys are playing under really a whole new regime now, technically. I mean, yes, Derek Nix is still calling the play calls. Yes, DJ Durkin's still going to be calling defense as well, in addition to him being the acting head coach. Be interesting to see how that team sort of galvanizes themselves. And, I mean, look, they have major opportunities here. They have Vanderbilt, top 25 team, FCS team, so those 2 wins get to a bowl game if you're to win Saturday and then win against Mercer, I believe. And then you play Bama at home, which I believe is that the first time that the Iron Bowl has had an interim head coach at home for Auburn. I know they had one with after Harsin was fired in 22. It may have been labeled before my time, but in terms of an Auburn home game with an interim coach for the Iron Bowl, I can't recall that. So that's pretty rare. But yeah, major opportunities coming up here for Auburn to, get some big wins and finish the season strong. So now as for the search, of course, we did a little reaction on Sunday night, sort of my thoughts on what went down with Hugh Freeze and why it went so bad. And of course, other stuff has come out since then about, how mainly the quarterback stuff, some hinting or some whispers about maybe the folks within Hugh Freeze's orbit were not necessarily over the moon about Jackson Arnold being the quarterback, but Hugh Freeze said no to that, so he kind of vetoed that. They try to reach out to other quarterbacks who didn't enter the portal. I think like Marcel Reed was one, and some other names that were mentioned briefly by some of the Auburn beat writers. So that's since come out. But in terms of the future for Auburn, yeah, I mentioned this on Sunday night about my fears about the Auburn boosters and the sort of the whole deep state of Auburn kind of getting in the way of things again and sort of hijacking the entire coaching search. I still feel that way. Okay, like my fears about that are still around. Okay, that's why I'm really afraid about the fact that Jimbo Fisher's name is being brought up a whole lot. So that is a valid concern, and I think it's a valid concern for Auburn fans too. But what gives me more hope, or kind of gives me hope, is that John Cohen, the AD there, of course, him, DJ Durkin, were speaking to the public yesterday in their press conference, brought up that he is the search, he being John Cohen, he's the committee, and everything will go through him and whatnot. So at least that makes me more confident, and also based on what Auburn is at, right? You have LSU's open, Florida's open. Both of those schools have no alignment, okay? Like Florida, Scott Strickland's probably, look, if they don't get Lane Kiffin, he's probably going to get fired. If they're not able to get him. Obviously, LSU, they have no president. The governor is getting involved too. So for Auburn, at the moment, it's actually the most stable major job out there right now. They have an AD, they have a president. I mean, besides them and Penn State, they're the only real two major jobs that are actually stable at the moment. So that is a big deal for Auburn. At least a big, like extra oomph to them, if you will, an extra. At least makes yourself feel better if you're an Auburn fan. So again, like we talked about on Sunday, yes, unfortunately, Jimbo Fisher is a real possibility. Yes, other names are being considered. John Summerall at Tulane. You have Alex Galesh. Josh Payne on his show Sunday night sort of downplayed the whole Galesh stuff. I kind of think he will be in play, but I could definitely see him being in play for Florida too if they don't get Lane Kiffin, and of course if Florida State opens up. But for Auburn, again, I don't feel good about it. In fact, at least how the search will be conducted, because if the last two coaching searches the last two have been any indication, this could get into the territory of like Tennessee after they fired Butch Jones. Yeah, it could get a little weird. So just letting you guys know that. But at the moment they're the most stable of the situations, especially in the SEC. So that's one thing you can hang your hat on for Auburn, that you guys have alignment. Everyone's fine. Everyone's there's kosher, right? Everyone's, I think, okay. So, but yeah, I'm still not really even confident that the coaching search won't even be a disaster, right? That's not a guarantee. It won't. It's just, there's definitely a lot of, a lot of fear, if you will, about, could the boosters again hijack the surge and it gets all confusing and weird. So, praying it's not going to happen. Praying that them making some sort of weird hire like Jimbo Fisher or something does not happen. I would much prefer that. So hopefully that won't happen. Now for LSU, of course, we talked about it last week. The governor is getting involved. You have no sitting president. Obviously, Scott Woodward's out. We talked about that in the Thursday show. Again, it's sort of like Auburn. Or kind of going back to Auburn. Again, Auburn, between LSU, Florida, and Auburn, the big schools that are open or the big jobs that are open, Auburn's the only one that has alignment. So if you're LSU, you're kind of behind on that. So obviously got to hire yourself to get your AD. Rumors are it's going to be the guy from McNeese, I believe, who's an LSU grad. So rumors are you're going to hire an AD first, like you probably should. Hopefully the microphone didn't cut out there. But, hopefully you get your AD first. It's been on the screen there. So, yeah, your AD first, and then you make the coaching hire. So it looks like with LSU, the process seems simple enough. But, again, much like Auburn, there's no guarantee it won't get weird either. So, again, their main target is definitely Lane Kiffin. John Summerall won't be in play probably. James Franklin probably not in play. Looks like it's going to start and end with Lane Kiffin probably, unless there's some other, mystery candidate we don't know about, which is always a possibility too. Same with Florida. Again, if it starts and if it's going to start and end with Lane Kiffin, the Florida search. Now, again, like I mentioned a few minutes ago, if they don't get him, which is different with LSU, because remember LSU is getting a whole new AD, right, and a new president. So if they don't get Lane Kiffin, it's okay, whatever, we missed on him. Now, with Florida and Scott Strickland, if they don't get Lane Kiffin, Scott's out. Okay, he's out. That's 3 times where you have had a blunder on a coaching search. The whole Dan Mullen thing, not that his hiring was controversial, it was just the way it ended. His time at Florida ended was controversial. You have the whole Bill Napier thing. So I feel like if Strickland, if they don't get Lane Kiffin, someone that a lot of Florida fans have convinced themselves are getting, I guarantee you it's going to be like probably the equivalent of Greg Schiano stuff, the whole thing at Tennessee back in, 2017? I think it could get ugly there in Gainesville, which is why I believe that Strickland, it's in his best interest to make sure you really push hard at Lane Kiffin. If you don't get him, then unfortunately his ass is out of town too. So very volatile situation there in Gainesville. At LSU, it's a little bit more of the whole procedural stuff. But I think with Florida, there is a legit chance that they could also complete the full on regime change and get Scott Strickland out if they do not get Lane Kiffin. If they do get Lane Kiffin, then obviously Scott will still be there. But if they don't, I think Scott's on the way out, and they will have to wait, get another AD, then hire the coach. So, yeah, the Florida job is the one that it could get really messy, but no one's talking about it. So that's my kind of fear, that I feel like the Florida situation could get messy if they don't get Lane Kiffin, which is where I believe Scott Strickland will be told to go pack his bags and take his ass out of town. Now, as for Penn State, this has changed a little bit. Now, Kirk Cincinnati, no surprise, he signs the extension with not Cincinnati, wrong school. Signs the extension with Indiana. Cool. Then, of course, all the attention turned to Matt Rhule. Of course, he's a Penn State alum. He's played there. He has a lot of history in the state of Pennsylvania with Temple. A big personality. Of course, the sort of the detractions on Matt Rhule are, of course, his offense. Hiring his freaking buddy Scott Satterfield is a terrible offensive coordinator. In my opinion, I think he's kind of like him and Joe Sloan are kind of what I would consider dumb coaches. Those two, hiring his buddy, his OC Satterfield. Recruiting at Nebraska has been kind of okay, but not really okay. Then there's also his record against top 25 teams. So you're basically moving on from James Franklin, and then if you got Matt Rhule, you're hypothetically hiring just a budget version of that. At least that's what I've been told. However, and Matt Rhule has signed an extension with Nebraska, so he's not going anywhere. So now you've lost two of your big candidates if you're Penn State. So now this is where it gets interesting. So you lose out on those two, but that doesn't mean the other candidates are out there. So this is the same thing with any of these schools: Auburn, Florida, LSU. Now, yes, again, the Florida thing, it's more volatile because, again, if they miss out on Kiffin, Strickland's out. So that whole thing could get really messy. Now, the thing is, though, while you miss out on if you end up missing out on your big target, any of these schools, including, of course, Penn State here, there are other candidates. And one of them, just to bring it up as as a classic CYA situation, is that there's a man named Brian Kelly who is out of a job at LSU. And yes, it didn't work out there. And yes, he got lazy towards the end. But it's not impossible to think. Brian Kelly, Northeast guy, has a big pedigree with, being a consistent winner wherever he's been at, even at LSU, right? He didn't have a losing season there, just that things operationally behind the scenes were atrocious, apparently. Who's to say that Brian Kelly couldn't get the Penn State job or wouldn't be considered? Wouldn't surprise me. That's not a guarantee, but that is a name I would just look at as a potential name you will hear, right? So that one we're keeping an eye on with Penn State. Still no real clear leader in the clubhouse yet, but that one has certainly gotten a little more interesting with their two big candidates signing extensions. And not to mention, too, SMU also is retaining or at least going to be keeping Rhett Lashley. So that's another big name crossed off for Arkansas or potentially Florida as well. Now, the last one here, Virginia Tech. There's been a lot of substance, but yeah, just a lot of kind of interesting things coming out there, and at least a lot of rumors and theories about James Franklin. Of course, James Franklin, the former Penn State coach, he's available now, and clearly he's made it very crystal clear that he wants to coach again. And there are now rumors about him going to Virginia Tech, or at least there's momentum being built, or at least momentum being gathered about Franklin going to State College, or not. Leaving, well, he used to be in Penn State. Now him going to Blacksburg. Yeah, Blacksburg. Him going there. And do I believe those are true? Do I believe those are complete crap? I don't know. I would lean to believe there is some suspense to it. There at least some evidence to it, right? It's an interesting fit. Kind of like Penn State, a power that was really powerful, very full program that was on the top of the world almost back in the late 90s, early 2000s. Sort of fought on hard times. It's a region that James Franklin's very familiar with, so it would make sense for him to go there. But is it true that they've made a decision on it, that there will be some sort of announcement soon? and not now, but maybe towards like the end of the regular season. Yeah, sure, possible. So Franklin to Virginia Tech, not Penn. He left Penn State or he got fired. Franklin to Blacksburg seems like it's a real possibility. I'm not saying it's a guarantee, but a real possibility. Now, in terms of the jobs that we're waiting on opening up, two of them here we'll touch on real quick. And that being the first one being, of course, one we've been talking about for a while, Florida State. They won this past weekend against Wake Forest. They destroyed them, by the way. Did that change anything with Florida State fans or the overall thinking? No. I still firmly believe that Florida State will open up. I think it doesn't matter. It just feels like the thinking to me, and I've heard a lot of folks, Florida State guys, talk about it, like Bud Elliott, for example, on Moldcast and Cover 3 for CBS Sports. That he's even made it clear on his show on the Moldcast, and he said it, I think last week. He's like, look, if Norvell's still here next year, we're not doing the show. And that, to me, speaks volume for an entire fan base that if Norvell is still there and they're going to run it back after this year, then a lot of that fan base is going to revolt. And that's where things can get really ugly there. So I think it's unfortunately for the best interest of Florida State that you have to make a move on Norvell. Just eat the money, move on. Now, the next one, last one here of jobs that we're waiting on is Michigan State. Now, the rumors and theories about this job opening up a few weeks ago, I didn't really buy into it. Yes, their defense has been atrocious. Yes, it's not look too good. But after thinking about it, I kind of feel like this job's going to open up. Look, I like Jonathan Smith. I've never met him before. I've watched a lot of his teams at Oregon State. I thought him bringing in a child to help out at Michigan State. Yes, he did inherit a bad situation with Mel Tucker and how he left that roster a mess. And not to mention the scandal behind him, and not up to including the on-the-field stuff. But it just felt like to me when they hired Jonathan Smith that it was going to work out. I was very confident about that he would, with Aiden Childs coming in and his mentality, was really going to benefit those folks in East Lansing. It just hasn't. And my suspicion is that this, to me, feels like Brian Harsin at Auburn. It's just not a good fit culturally and regionally. It's a mismatch, and there will be probably a regime change there sooner rather than later. It just kind of seems like it's going to happen. Like to me, the best way I can describe Michigan State right now is that it sort of seems like it's happening or it's going to happen, but no one's talking about it, which is really weird. So, and there's other ones too we can talk about. I mean, there's Colorado of Dion. No, he's not getting fired. Could he resign or retire? Yeah, it's gone bad. They've gone blown out historically bad last couple of games in terms of loss margin. So there's that. Of course, the whole Sark stuff with the NFL. Got some spit there on the screen again. Is there anything about that still as a real substance? I mean, there might be, but I'm not too concerned about that. But yeah, Texas, we're kind of watching. Colorado, Michigan State, Florida State, Wisconsin. Also, kind of like Michigan State, seems like it's going to happen. Though that one has been more out there, I guess, publicly, because it's a little bit bigger brand than Michigan State, at least in football wise. So, yeah, coaching carousel, never a dull moment in college football to talk about the coaching carousel. Absolutely love it. I'm going to get some water real quick, and then we will be back, and we're going to do Week 11 predictions. That's what you guys came for. So let me do that real quick. Mute here on YouTube. How about that? I mean, we've gone 18 minutes. I've been talking about actual games. This is really rare for us. But it's becoming common now because we've had to talk about the coaching carousel. BYU, Texas Tech. This is, I believe, a noon kickoff on ABC. Hopefully, we'll be able to watch it. Right? God bidding, YouTube TV and ESPN settled the whole thing out. Which if they don't, then the next between this show and the next show, we'll definitely talk about it more in detail. But yeah, that's atrocious. But yeah, YouTube TV, barring any new deal, we'll be able to watch it. But yeah, BYU Texas Tech on ABC noon, a rare non-SEC or I guess /ACC game for ABC. A very rare move now because again, most of the ABC games are now on at least tied to the SEC now, so a very rare move here. Not to mention too, it's Fowler and Herbstreit doing the game. So again, it's also ultra very rare. So a very special moment here for the Big 12. For the first time, I believe, in a couple of years, that they've had Herbie and Fowler do one of these games. So also College Game Day will be there as well. So that's That's great to hear. Um, it's nice that potentially the low viewership because of the whole YouTube TV stuff didn't scare ESPN or ABC from doing this. So golf clap for them at least. Give you credit where credit is due. But yeah, Texas Tech BYU probably a game that's going to eliminate one of these teams from the Big 12 championship game in Dallas. Kind of feels like it's them, Utah, Cincinnati. Those are like kind of your four big teams, if you will. Of course, with Houston losing last week, that kind of moved them out a little bit. Well, they moved them out a little bit. They're out now. So now it's down to these four teams. This is one of those elimination games. So this game, to me, in a lot of ways, is going to be marred a little bit by BYU and the hate that we're getting. Of course, now the college football playoff rankings are coming out tonight. Of course, we'll react to that on Thursday, at least talk about it. But it'll be interesting to see where the committee and kind of get the feels a little bit and see where they are. But great shot. I do agree with Bud Elliott that ESPN show is stupid and there's no reason to do a whole show about it or talk about it. That knowledge, but we'll bring it up a little bit on Thursday. But I'm not really going to focus on that too much tonight. Like whatever. But yeah. So yeah, the biggest thing about this game that's going to get the most attention, unfortunately, is going to be BYU and hate that they're getting. It's not necessarily hate. It's just in the world of power ratings. Okay, we did this last week. In the world of power ratings, BYU is not rated highly because they've had a very workable schedule, a very friendly schedule that has no real difficult teams, and B, so that's A. B, the games they have played, even against the worst of the worst in the Big 12, like Colorado and West Virginia, they really struggle in those games, especially against running quarterback. And this game with Texas Tech and how talented they are, and they are, again, the most talented team in the Big 12, that's scary that's scary for BYU, that they have not faced this type of talent yet. And yes, it did beat Utah. Yes, it did do that. But did that necessarily change my mind on them as a team and as a title contender in the Big 12, or let alone a playoff team? No at all. I still think that they are living off or at least they're living off of their early schedule, and they're living on borrowed time. I just don't know if they match up very well with Texas Tech, and I think that's where it's going to come down to. Is Texas Tech offensive line, D-line, and the lines of scrimmage for BYU. So again, if you're looking at this, if you're thinking about scores for the game, like how many points is it going to take for the winner to win this game? I'm thinking, given Texas Tech's defensive profile, I'm thinking 27, 21, in between there, points for either team to win the game here. I'm not expecting this to be a very high-scoring game. And look, I'm not even just expecting BYU as a team or a program. I mean, Claudio Sitake, very well-respected coach. I mean, look, I was interested to see how it would work out there for him when he first got there years ago. I think he had that 4-8 year, his second year, that it started to get going with Zach Wilson and whatnot. Now here they are, back-to-back seasons where they've started off undefeated. But again, I'm not hitting on BYU. It's just from a power rating standpoint, I get why they're just a little bit lower or not even in the list of teams who would be favored over who. Like there would be a whole bunch of teams that would be favored over BYU. And this game is yet another example. Yeah, again, I'm not hitting on BYU. These are the facts, right? And on this show, we divvy up the facts for this. Okay, so that's what we're doing here. And BYU is yet again a dog here. We'll talk about the FanDuel line and the college football nerds model here in a second. But yeah, they're a dog for a reason. It's just that, again, their talent profile, the way they have their schedules looked, not to mention how they have struggled against some of the bad teams they played. They're just not a good team that's profiling as a championship contender, or at least a team that will be power rated very highly. If you want to rank them high, I have no problem with that. But if you're power rating them properly, BYU should not be in, at the very least, the top 20. Top 25, okay. Top 20, no. They would not be favored by – they will be dogs to a lot of teams in everyone's power ratings, okay? So that's – again, it's not me being mean. It's just the way the calculators work and the computers work and these numerical, quantitative models work. It just doesn't – that's how it is, okay? There's not – as the old saying goes, calculators have no heart, okay? But on the field for BYU, I think it's a total mismatch. Let's be honest with you. I think Texas Tech defensive line and their offensive line should fully take advantage of Texas Tech or BYU, because I don't think BYU has the type of players to keep up with Texas Tech. Now, having said that, I understand that, again, Claudio Sitake, a very good coach. He's been there again for a number of years. Bear Buckmeyer, yes, the brother of the Buckmeyer kid from Boise State, I believe, a couple years ago, and I think he went. I think he transferred somewhere else too. He was there with. He was the quarterback that beat Florida State in 2019, I believe. He was a freshman. I remember watching that game. But yes, he's part of the esteemed Bachmeyer family. But it's really going to come down to Bear Bachmeyer for Texas Tech, or at least for BYU, not Texas Tech, for BYU. Bear Bachmeyer for BYU to win this game, they need Bear Bachmeyer to have the game of his life. Okay, again, he's a good athlete. He can move around. But again, I just don't know if the BYU offensive line can hold up to Tech's D-line. Now, look, Joe McGuire, the way they've constructed this roster of him and, of course, Cody Campbell, I mean, look, his name's on the field for a reason. I mean, the guy's the richest man in college football, at least in terms of influential money donor. I mean, the guy is going to be a legend there if they, win the Big 12 and go into the playoffs. Like, again, there's a reason why the stadium has, or at least the field has his name on there. But again, the way they have constructed this entire roster with Cody Campbell and Joe McGuire and that staff there is really amazing. Again, with the portal and the way it's set up, it's definitely is a lot of chance, right? It's like you're rolling the dice, and it's not a guarantee you'll get the numbers you want. But so far for Texas Tech, much like Ole Miss, much like Colorado at times, and also Florida State in 2023, they got lucky. And all the guys they've got have been major hits for them. And luckily for them, they've also had a little bit of injury luck, I guess. Now, it does suck for them that their backup quarterback is done for the year. I think he tore his ACL last week, so he's out. So Brandon Morton, if he gets hurt again, which he is still made out of glass, I don't feel comfortable about their whole situation in terms of their quarterback room behind him. And now with the other kid out for the year. Not to mention, too, the running back, of course, they lost one of them early in the year as well. But so far, it's not been that much of an issue. But, just overall, I just don't think BYU can out-athlete the guys that Tech has. And I grant you, yes, those aren't like the same type of athletes that, Georgia has or Ohio State has or Alabama has or, Miami has to a certain extent. They're not, but they're still better than most teams in the Big 12. So, so we'll take up what the FanDuel line is and what the CFB Nerds model has it. CFB Nerds, I'll just say this, the CFB Nerds model, of course, College Football Nerds, Josh and Daniel do a really good job there, both on their website and their YouTube channel, too. If you haven't subscribed to them, do so. So their model and the FanDuel line are around the same-ish. FanDuel has it Tech -9, -9. CFB Nerds has it Tech -11. And I agree with that. I think Texas Tech will win the game. I think they do cover. Again, I just don't foresee – I really don't foresee BYU being able to out-athlete Tech. And not to mention it's on the road. Yes, I am aware about the whole – they don't throw the tortillas on the field anymore, which is atrocious, by the way. Hopefully that gets reversed, but a shame that they stopped doing that because that was pretty cool. But yeah, the atmosphere there, even with the tortillas not being thrown on the field anymore, it's still a good atmosphere. At least from what I've seen on TV. So that coupled with, again, just the total difference in terms of the athletes you're facing if you're BYU versus what you've had so far this year, total night and day. So I'm expecting them to lose. I'm not trying to be mean, but that's my feeling. Nothing against you, BYU. Nothing against Kalani Sitake and all of them. It's just I kind of feel like you're living on borrowed time. And much like Georgia Tech last week, losing to NC State, which we correctly predicted, by the way, I think guys are going to lose this game. So Texas Tech wins. I think they cover. Next one here, we'll touch on this a little bit quick because it is a G5 game. But Tulane and Memphis. I think this is on Friday, I believe. Yeah, I think it's on Friday. Big game in the G5, by the way. It's a big game. I mean, if Tulane loses this game, they're out of the running for the American, and that means Memphis and Navy and then North Texas are in the mix. But I mean, what a year for the American, by the way. Probably the best conference in the G5 or G6, whatever term you want to use. But it's a huge game for both of these programs, and also a huge game for, or at least a huge audition game. What that means, or at least what I'm talking about, is this is a game that, I mean, look, if the if people can watch it, YouTube TV, people are able to watch it, which I think hopefully by then you'll be able to. A lot of prospective coaching, or at least prospective fan bases might be watching this game, particularly in the southeastern region, being Auburn, Florida, LSU fans, and maybe others. We'll have a little bit of interest in this game because two head coaches in this game, John Summerall, Ryan Silverfield, are both considered for a lot of SEC jobs that are open. Of course, Summerall more or less connected to Auburn and Silverfield, Arkansas maybe in the mix there. Other like maybe LSU and Florida. Those seem like long shots, but particularly with John Summerall, a lot of folks are watching this game because of him. Yes, they did lose to UTSA last week. Was that potentially some distraction with the LSU job open? Maybe if the Auburn job coming open, or at least the potential of it coming open, maybe kind of like the Matt Rule thing, a little bit distraction, and also potentially looking ahead. But does that loss last week, does it change my opinion of Tulane football and John Summerall? No, not really. Still think he's a good coach. I still think he's definitely in the mix for a lot of these head coaching jobs, particularly with Auburn. If you don't know, of course, he used to coach in the state of Alabama. His wife went to Auburn. She's an alumni. So a lot of family, a lot of personal connections there to the job. So that's why he is the number one candidate. I may not get the job, but he should be in the running for it. And look, if it was me hiring, if I was Jock Cohen's and now if I was in his shoes, yeah, I'm calling John Summerall regardless. I want him to say no. But for this game, I mean, look, Memphis, they have a good offense, defense not so much. So if you're Tulane, if you're, of course, you're in wounded, well, they're not animals. So yeah, I guess sort of wounded animal mode, wounded wave mode. I guess I don't know if a wave can get hurt, but yeah, they're kind of backs against the wall. You didn't look good last week. You're still in the mix again for the American Conference. You're not dead yet. You just need to win this game to get yourself undead. It was like halfway out of the grave. But I mean, I guess for Tulane, the good thing is, look, I mean, you have Retzlaff at quarterback. He's done pretty well for you. You're facing a fairly vulnerable defense in Memphis that allowed South Florida to come back a couple weeks ago after they beat them, or when they beat them, when USF was still ranked. So the defense can be got on. Go ask them when they play UAB, the interim coach, Morrison, I believe. So they can be had on. So I think Tulane had staff there. And look, to any of these prospective fan bases who are wanting John Summerall, I mean, the thing about him is that, yes, he's a defensive-minded coach, but he's not a Muschamp clone. He definitely cares about the offense. He actually does care about running a very unique offense and actually having a productive one. So I don't have to worry about winning games 10-7 or something like that. So yes, they score points there, and their offense is pretty good. And for Memphis, that's a concern, right? They have the capability, at least we have seen all year, to score a lot of points. And not to mention, again, they're a very physical team, very physical defense as well. And that's a challenge there for Memphis. Again, I just don't know if they've really seen a team like this yet, at least this style, if you will. I think a lot of teams in the American are very much so these spread them out type teams. And even one of the teams they beat in their non-con, Memphis, Arkansas, very much so a horrible defense, not a very physical team. So this will be the most physical team they faced all year, I think, even including their loss to UAB. So it's not me dishing on Memphis. Just I mean, look, I think they're a decent team. I think Silverfield is a fantastic job after taking over for Mike Norvell when he left to go to Florida State. But I'm not a fan of their defense. They've been very sus, if you will, if you want to use that term. And I do trust John Summerall and company to show up, be physical, and I think they can score some points on them. Now, of course, the turnaround for Memphis is okay. If you get into a shootout, how many points do you need? Do you need like 30 plus? Do you need close to 40? That's kind of what I'm thinking here. So let's take a look at the model from CFB Nerds and the FanDuel line. So the FanDuel line has it Memphis minus 6.5. Some of that's because of your home field advantage. CFB Nerds model has Memphis actually covering pretty big. They have them winning by 12.7, so around 13 points, which is pretty big. I disagree with the CFB Nerds model and even the FanDuel line. So I'm taking a whiff here, or I'm taking a flyer on Tulane. I think they win the game outright. I just trust John Summerall a little more than Ryan Silverfield. And I feel like, again, Tulane being a very physical team, they were down after last week, a lot of distractions going on. I think Summerall, knowing he's in the clubhouse for a lot of these big jobs in the SEC, I do believe he knows, or at least hoping, again, given what happens with YouTube TV and they get their thing done with ESPN, that a lot of folks are going to watch this game with a whole bunch of interest, a lot of prospective fan base as well. So he's in a, much like with several teams throughout the year, like Memphis early in the year, Alex Galesh at USF he's had these sort of audition games before already, and also kind of like Jim Harbaugh with Michigan in the Rose Bowl. Of course, a lot of that was him kind of showing off, doing trick plays, and a lot of it showing off to prospective NFL teams that should not be named. But yeah, this is definitely a audition game for both Ryan Silverfield and, of course, John Summerall. So I think Tulane wins the game all right. I just kind of it really feels like to me the run team's favored. I think a little bit of it is, I think the markets are a little bit down on Tulane after what happened last week. I'm not. I think they'll be okay. They are the more physical team than Memphis, at least from my personal opinion. So I feel pretty good about it. More here. We have, 2 more games here. How about that? Again, yes, unfortunately, these are SEC games that, they exist. We have to talk about them. Texas A&M, Missouri. I believe this is the 3:30 game on ABC. I'll double check. Let me check here. It may actually be on ESPN. Let me check. Texas A&M. A&M. Is this 3:30 on ABC? Yes, it is. I believe. Curious who is, if they announced the team yet. Okay, yeah, it's Joe Tessitore, Jesse and Katie George. Great crew there. So they should be doing this game, I believe, barring anything else. So yeah, they're doing the game. Again, this is a same matchup happened last year, just the venue changes. So you're going to Farah Field there in Columbia, Missouri. Under construction, I get that, but still, the stadium's still there, so it's fine. This to me is interesting for Texas A&M in a lot of ways. They're off of bye weeks. Yes, they're rested, and that is an advantage. But I just want to know, as they go through their season, as you go through your, for any team, frankly, especially in not so much in the Big Ten, but I guess mainly for the SEC because it is the deepest conference in America. I'm interested to see if A&M, at least in the next couple of weeks, I think they get a G5 in between now and the game against Texas. I think I'll have to double check that. Actually, let me go ahead and check that. Pretty sure they do have another G5 game between. So they get Missouri, South Carolina, FCS team, and then Texas. So yeah. So what I was about to say is that my thing of A&M is not so much I don't trust them because I think they're a good team. Okay, do I think they're like the best team? No. Number 2 team, solid number 2. Yeah, I think so. Wouldn't be surprised tonight on the CFB rankings that they are number 2. Now, if they are, would it shock them they're number 1? Yeah, a little bit. Yeah, that would shock me, but not totally shock me because it doesn't matter until the final ones. I do agree with Bud Elliott on that. But if they do, a little raise the eyebrow, but whatever. But either way, they're a very good team. But my question here is not question, just observation. Or not observation, I don't know, would you call it a hypothesis? Yeah, I guess an hypothesis. Do I believe this A&M team will finish the year undefeated? My hypothesis on that is no. I don't think they're going to. I think they will lose a game. Is it this game? Is it a game against South Carolina? Is it the game at Texas on Thursday night? Or I believe on Black Friday on ABC there? I don't know. At least I'm not too confident yet, though I will say I am leaning towards one of those games being the first loss. Could it be this one? Who knows? But that's my thing of Texas A&M is that as you go through this season, even with the bye week, it's not a guarantee you win all of your games in the SEC, and that's okay, right? That's not nothing requires you to be undefeated unless you're, I guess, Notre Dame to get a top four seed in the playoffs. So if you have one loss in the SEC in regular season, you should be okay. You'll still go to Atlanta. Like I'm fully convinced that they will be in Mercedes-Benz Stadium for the first time ever, which is kind of crazy to say. Let alone that championship game in general. A&M didn't go to the Georgia Dome for the SEC championship game at all. I mean, they went there for a bowl game, but they didn't go there for they didn't go there when the Georgia Dome was hosting the SEC championship game. So this will be the first time going there. Period. Not to Atlanta, but just going to Mercedes-Benz at all, or at least the championship game. So this will be huge for them. They continue to win. I believe if they win this weekend, I believe they do lock it up, right? Them and Bama, if teams start to lose behind them, I think they do lock it up here in the next couple of weeks. So interesting to ponder there a little bit. But For A&M, yeah, I wonder, just in general, okay, just 50,000-foot perspective. Can they keep this thing going? Can they keep going undefeated? It's very hard in the SEC because a lot of these teams are looking at Texas A&M as like, look, you guys are the one being hunted. So Missouri, South Carolina, Texas, they're all, I mean, Texas especially is a rivalry. You're going to have your target on your back. Okay, so they're all coming after you. So again, whether it's this game, South Carolina or Texas, these are all losable games. Not because they're better teams than you, it's just that teams, and I agree with Josh Pate, teams who have never experienced November before, who have never breathed that air before, at least to this extent, they're going to struggle. Okay, they are going to struggle. No doubt in my mind, they are going to struggle. Whether it's early November or late November, they are going to struggle. Losses are going to happen. That's how it is sometimes. I'm not trying to mean to A&M fans or the program. It's just that's just how the sport works sometimes. And in a year like this, where it's definitely profiling in a lot of ways, sort of like 2014, where you had a lot of teams beating up on each other by November, especially teams who have never been in this position before, undefeated and ranked nationally high, at least this high in a long time. So A&M fits that bill. Now, if you're Missouri, you have Amar Hardy, the running back. A&M has not faced I would say a quasi-good running game. Based on the schedule, I don't think they have. Like Notre Dame, when they had Jeremiah Love, he was not a factor. It was more of Notre Dame's ability to throw the football, actually, of C.J. Carr. Besides that, you have not faced, besides Arkansas, a real offensive pulse. Yeah, besides Notre Dame and Arkansas, you have not done that. And both of those teams, from what I remember, they run the football very well. And besides those two teams, you have not faced offenses that have really been really offenses that have, that can put the fear of God into your Auburn, obviously, no. Mississippi State, no. Florida, God, no. LSU, definitely no. So, yeah, you have not really faced a team that you really fear offensively if you're Texas A&M defensively. And they can be had on, right? A&M, their pass defense is very suspect, okay? We saw it against Arkansas, saw it against Notre Dame, saw it a little bit against LSU at times. Auburn, not really. But they can be had on a little bit. And I wonder if any of these teams on the road can do that. I don't think Missouri can do it, but again, like I mentioned about A&M facing a really good running attack, they have not faced a really good running attack probably since Notre Dame. So it's been a long time. And again, going against running back and Ahmad Hardy, who I still believe he's pretty good. Yes, he struggled since Missouri has scaled up their game, but they're still again, yes, even with the whole running back injury situation, or not running back, a quarterback injury situation, they should be fine. Missouri, I think they should be okay. Whomever is starting for them, I guess. But also, I should mention too, they are also off a bye as well, so they've been rested. So both of these teams are off a bye, so they're fully healthy in terms of the current players who are ready to go healthy, right? So your running back situation, receivers from Missouri, do I think they can expose Texas A&M? I don't think so. Could they? Yeah, they might, but I don't think so. Again, I think for Missouri to win this game, again, if you're to look at the scores here, like what's the hypothetical score? Kind of thinking 27-24, 31-27, kind of in that ballpark. Not expecting it to be a very low scoring game, a little bit more, again, kind of in the 20s, maybe low 30s. Not expecting 40s maybe, but we'll see. And then for A&M, again, it really comes down to the offense eating up on a Missouri defense that kind of susceptible a little bit. They've been scored on a lot. And I wonder if this is a game, because again, therefore we haven't brought up too is the Heisman Trophy stuff. And we have seen a lot of different names out there. Julian Sayin, Ty Simpson, and yes, they should be out there. And yes, those are definitely they have separated themselves from the rest of the country in terms of Heisman favorites. But this game for Texas A&M and a game against Texas is going to be very good examples, or at least opportunities for Marcel Reed to really put himself in that position. Now, will he win the Heisman? No. I don't think he's going to. But could he be in New York? Yeah, he'll probably be in New York, which is weird to say, but yeah, he might be there. And these are two games that a lot of folks across the country will be watching. Again, God forbid YouTube TV comes back. Hopefully they do. At least if they're ESPN thing, that these will be opportunities for them to at least have Marcel Reed have a lot of big moments, right? So that's me for A&M, because again, I think Missouri can be had on just as much as A&M can. But the problem is Texas A&M can expose them like I don't think Missouri can expose Texas A&M. So, with all that being said, again, I kind of do wonder here, again, as we're kind of wrap up this little preview, as we wrap up the preview, before we get to the before I get to my pick and the betting stuff, can Missouri do anything against Texas A&M? Can this running game, with them being off, along with A&M, with them being off, Missouri, can they maybe get a ball harder going, and can this A&M run defense be exposed? Again, they have not been exposed, or at least have not faced a decent rushing attack, at least when that profiles as one, since Notre Dame. So it's been a while since they faced a good running back, at least running game, or at the very least a team that is willing to run the football. So at least commit to it. And I think A&M defensively has not seen that since Notre Dame. Missouri, I think, is going to try to commit to it. I also do believe they will try to expose A&M secondary. Again, can they do it with a backup quarterback? I don't know. Possible. Not to mention, too, this is on the road. And by the way, this is, again, not exactly back-to-back, but is at least on the way the schedule is laid out, if you don't count the bye week, back-to-back games where they're on the road with the bye week in between is still difficult. And again, it is the SEC. And again, this is a situation with A&M is one of those teams where they are entering rarefied air to where they have not been in this position before in my lifetime. The closest they've been to it, at least the closest they have been close to this pedestal is 2012 with Manziel, and I believe in 2016, at least for a week. And I think, what was it? That Trevor Knight team with Kevin Selman, they were like one loss, they're undefeated, and they lost to Mississippi State. I believe in the first week of November. So, they have gotten close to that, but they've not been to this level before of, being like top 3 in the country, or potentially even number 1 team in the country. So, again, it is rarefied air. So that is something to consider for a lot of these not new teams, but teams that are entering this layer, or at least this tier of college football, supremacy, I guess. So, again, it is the SEC, and I do wonder if any of these teams who have not been in this position before, can they do it? I don't know. At least can they sustain success this late in the year this far? So with all that being said, I do believe A&M wins the game outright. They win the game outright. And I do believe Missouri does cover, and we did this out of order. But yeah, I'm picking A&M to win the game. But I kind of feel like A&M defensively, again, it'll be an interesting test against Maud Hardy and that Missouri rushing attack, and it'll be interesting to see. I think Missouri can do some things creatively, even with the quarterback situation. But the model and the CFB Nerds model and FanDuel, I should have done this first. This is kind of the reason why I sort of went the way I went with my pick. But the FanDuel line, at least at the time I did it, was A&M minus 7.5. Makes sense to me. A really decent number on the road. However, the CFB Nerds model, they have Missouri winning the game by 4.8. So that is telling. So I am going to go with the model a little bit, CFB Nerds model. So I have A&M winning the game, but out of respect for that model, I have Missouri covering. So, look, they can win the game outright too. It's not out of the realm of possibility. So, and then finally here, not a game we really want to spend too much time on, but I guess we kind of will. And that's LSU at Bama. Again, also much like Missouri and Texas A&M. 2 teams off of a bye. It's a classic rivalry game that has kind of lost its luster just a little bit. But, of course, look, it's obvious to Bama. I'm picking them to win the game. The FanDuel line, by the way, is Bama minus 9.5. CFB Nerds has it a little bit lower, 6.1, but still that's pretty significant given this rivalry. It's a shame. Didn't have to be like this. Yes, Brian Kelly's out of a job. Yes, it is interim coach and Frank Wilson, who has experience, by the way. He was at, UTSA back in 2014, whatever. So not his first rodeo as a coach. It's his first time controlling a big program. Same with DJ Durkin at Auburn. But with a big spread like this, we usually do this not often, but sometimes. With spreads like this, we don't do a full traditional preview. We just do how would the upset happen, right? What would be the path for LSU to win this game? Well, the path for LSU to be competitive is Bama is still a very susceptible team. We saw that against South Carolina, but that was on the road. But they can be had on. These wide receivers for LSU, this offense for LSU, if they really want to, if LSU they made all the changes, they got Joe Sloan out of there, they removed Brian Kelly from office. Does that change everything? No, but does it give you sort of like with Auburn this weekend with Vanderbilt? Talk more about that game on Thursday. With changes like this, with what's going on in Auburn, what's going on with LSU, especially on the offense, with now these offensive shakeups, it gives these staffs with a different guy in charge more ability to do what they want to do, because these are not the full-time coaches. It's supposed to be Brian Kelly and Hugh Freeze at Auburn and LSU respectively, and that's right. At least I figured out that worded properly. But again, these are not Brian Kelly or Hugh Freeze. It's Frank Wilson, or it's DJ Durkin at Auburn. So these offensive coordinators, whomever they are, whether it's Dirk Nix at Auburn or the new coordinator, I believe it's Atkins, who was at Florida State with Mike Norvell, I believe he was calling the plays. Whoever it is, doesn't matter. They have a little bit more of a ability to do whatever they want. And I wonder if LSU, if they ever pull this off, have they been working on stuff throughout the bye week and into this week, game week, to where they're really doing some stuff and doing some things offensively that Bama or anyone at all, period, has not seen yet. So potentially getting the receivers involved. Again, they have talent. Brown from Kentucky. They have very good receivers that they got in the portal. Yes, their offensive line stinks. Yes, it's atrocious. But as long as, whomever the quarterback is, whether it's I'm not for sure if Nuss is going to go. I think he's going to. But whether it's him or the Van Buren kid from Mississippi State, it'll be interesting to see whomever it is. Doesn't matter. Will they let this offense? Will they sort of let the horses run offensively? Will they do some things different creatively? Maybe do some trick plays, or a random flea flicker, or maybe doing a wildcat formation, or maybe getting receivers more involved, and whatnot. Maybe having more quick decisions. Again, Bama at home versus Bama on the road, totally different. Bama on the road, again, it's a very hostile environment. Of course, they have not, by the way, lost a game, period, SEC game or non-con, since, they haven't lost an SEC game there since 2019. So it's been this past decade. But in terms of teams overall, non-con or conference, it's been a couple of years, but they don't lose it very often. So if LSU were to do this, again, I think offensively, I think they really need to do some stuff, or at least implement some things that they have not done before, which is, again, getting the receivers involved, maybe making Nussmeier make some quick decisions, or if it's Van Buren, same thing, and he's more of a dual threat, so maybe you bring that in a little bit. Luckily for LSU, the other half of the upset, if it were to happen, is that your defense really shows up. I am truly convinced that this is, with a shadow of a doubt, the best defense Bama has faced all year. Better than Georgia's, better than Florida State's, better than Vanderbilt's. It is miles ahead better than all of those teams. LSU has a pass rush. They can get to the rush passer. They're a very physical team. I think them having the bye week and the coaching change is really going to let Blake Baker flex his muscles here, him and that whole staff there. I am really fascinated what that looks like. Because, again, with Bama, yes, you may look at it and go, well, yeah, they faced Georgia, right? Kirby Smart, good defensive mind. I'm just telling you, that Georgia team, that defense is not – I do not fear that defense at all. They have no pass rush. They have really any sacks. And they have maybe less than 5. This LSU defense, though, way better. So if I'm a Bama fan, I am way more concerned about LSU's defense than I am against when I was facing Georgia. Okay? So I think there's that. So, again, if the upset were to happen, offense for LSU with the new play calling, how different does it look and how more creative is it? And then if you're LSU defensively, go out and play loose, right? Have fun. You have nothing to play for. Coach is gone. You have an interim guy who's a experienced head coach, who's a Louisiana guy. I just wonder that, is it possible that LSU, with everything they've been through, right, if they can galvanize everything and package it into what we have been is not who we are as a team. So I wonder if that's possible now. For Bama, of course, they could very easily flex their muscles here. They could very easily, do a lot of different things, potentially if LSU offensively is still a mess. In terms of the play calling design, and yes, I get it, the offensive line for LSU is a bit of a problem for them. So yeah, I would expect Bama defensively, to really be a problem for LSU. And of course, the home crowd there will be a problem. So again, for the upset that happened, again, I just really hope this LSU defense, given the coaching changing, given what has happened, is it possible? Is it possible that it looks different, at least in terms of schematically? Again, personnel-wise, you can't do much with the offensive line you have right now. It just is what it is. It's not good. But then again, Blake Baker, this is why you hired him. Yes, I know the season's a lost cause, but in terms of ruining someone else's season, that's why you bring in Blake Baker. That's why he is there. And if they're pull this off, it's mainly, in my opinion, going to be because of him and that whole defensive unit there. Because that's a really good defense. Again, that is the best defense Bama has faced all year. Period. I don't want to hear about Georgia. I don't want to hear about Florida State. I don't want to hear about Tennessee. This is the best defense they faced all year, or Vanderbilt too. Like, this is going to be a very big challenge for them. I'm very concerned about that from a Bama fan. So let's look at the model again on the FanDuel line. FanDuel line again, Bama minus 9.5. Pretty significant number there, especially for this rivalry game. CFB Nerds has it a little bit closer again. Bama minus 6.1. I think Bama wins the game outright. Not correction. They win the game. Look, I am picking them to win. However, I can't get out of my mind about LSU's defense, and I can't get out of my mind the fact that they have an interim coach who bleeds LSU, bleeds Louisiana, knows how important this rivalry game is. They might not win the game. They're going to struggle for sure, but I have a sneaking suspicion that they're going to be very competitive. They're going to compete, and I think they make this game very close. I think Bama wins the game, but I think LSU will cover. Somehow, some way, I think they'll cover. I could be wrong, but I think they do cover. All right, I'm gonna get some more water here, and then we'll do the Tuesday poll real quick, and we'll get into this Marvel news, and then we'll wrap up the show. Again, before I do that, if you're new here, again, please make sure subscribe. We've gotten a lot of traction lately, a lot of new folks coming in. We got a lot of views in our last stream, almost 40 views, which is pretty big for us, being a fairly new show, being here since last summer. This is our second full year doing this, so be sure to subscribe. We have 9, I believe, total subscribers, so I think currently. So yeah, don't be afraid. Hit the subscribe button. Same on Spotify as well. All right, Tuesday poll. Again, this is not a power rating. Tuesday poll. Yeah, this is not a power rating. This is just strictly, if I were an AP voter, I guess if I was on the playoff committee, how would I rank the teams? Not based on power ratings of, who would be favored over. It is just strictly a ranking. So a lot of movement here, I'll be honest with you. A lot of movement, a lot of new teams coming back, a lot of teams out, and even some teams entering in for the first time ever, I believe. So how about that? Again, we're going to be counting down from 25 to 1. So from 25, 25 to 20. Number 25, first time, by the way, entering the poll, Duke at 5-3 at number 25. That might sound crazy. That might sound a bit odd. Like, probably think to yourself, so you put Duke in after to beat Clemson? Clemson's not that good. Well, I understand that. However, I think many of you surprises, let me do a little quiz here as we're, I guess, stopping here. Who in the ACC is in the mix for the conference title in the standings? Based on all the one-loss teams, who are they? Do a little quiz here. If you don't know, let me just give them to you. So it's Virginia, who's undefeated. Their one loss came to NC State, but it's a non-con because they couldn't, a weird scheduling quirk. So yes, they technically have lost to an ACC team, but it won't count. They're the lone team undefeated. Georgia Tech, one loss overall, period. Pittsburgh, surprisingly, again, Pitt's kind of floating around too. They're one loss, but they may have some games where they're going to lose. So that may not last forever. So Pitt, they're still in the mix. Louisville, still in the mix. SMU, also still in the mix. But the same thing with Pitt. There might be some losses coming. Miami is out, so they have 2 losses now. But who was the last team here? So there's about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There's 6 teams. We listed 5 of them. Again, Virginia, Georgia Tech, Pitt, Louisville, SMU. There's 5. Who's the last one? Is it you probably think it's NC State, Wake Forest. It's not Miami. It's Duke. And let me tell you, now I was looking at Bud Elliott's projection. Now, then again, it's not him actually doing it. It's just a model he uses, a computer calculator system. So it's a little bit, it is an interesting thing. But if you actually look at the schedule for Duke, he has him in the playoff according to his model. Which, after thinking about it, it's not that crazy, folks. It is not that crazy. And the reason why is, think about this: Duke, if everything goes perfectly for them, they can still reach ACC championship game, and they have a lot of opportunities here because they get UConn, which is on the road, which it may or may not be a a challenge for them. But UConn with Jim Moore, then that's not a bad team. So we'll see. Again, this is coming off of a huge win over Clemson, so I'm a little concerned. But they get UConn. They have Virginia at home, so that helps that out. North Carolina, who's that team. They have Wake Forest. If everything goes perfectly for Duke, they have a very good chance of finishing the season with one loss, and will be in Charlotte to face either Georgia Tech or Louisville, which is crazy to think about. So, how about that? The Duke Blue Devils control their own destiny in the ACC, and their schedule, at least in the ACC terms, they get Virginia at home, which is big, and then they have North Carolina on the road, which is again a dead team, and they have Wake Forest. They could be in Charlotte for the ACC championship game. Now that sounds crazy, but it's not. If they win that conference, they win the ACC, which again it's an atrocious conference. They will be the ACC representative in the playoffs. So how about that? So yes, the Duke Blue Devils at 9-3 or 10-3, if they win out, including the ACC championship game, will be in the playoff, and they are going to be the lone representative for the ACC more than likely. I kind of agree with Bud. I do agree with Bud Elliott. The ACC really should be just a one-bid league. It's bad. At least going forward, and that's probably how it's going to be for the foreseeable future as long as the conference survives. So Duke being at 25, that's why they're in there. They continue to win, they'll move up. Because of that potential for them to win the conference or at least get to the ACC championship game. 24, Tennessee. 23, Cincinnati. Utah is at 22. Oklahoma, welcome in. You're at 21. USC at 20. All right, let's do, I guess we can do this. So 19-11 here, so a big swath here. Michigan at 19. Iowa at 18. Memphis, I believe I have them as the highest G5 team. They're at 17. 16, Georgia Tech, fell down a lot of spots. Miami also fell down multiple spots. Out at 15. Vanderbilt didn't fall that much. They're at 14. Just ahead of them, honoring the head-to-head here, is Texas at 7-2. Now, Notre Dame's at 12. And again, there's a lot of movement here. And this is why I was debating on who would I put up here. But Notre Dame being at 12, I don't like it because this feels like I'm projecting. But as we sort of get more of these teams cleaned up, it kind of feels like Notre Dame's in a decent spot. That's not a guarantee. Again, I think their rest of their schedule, in terms of their current resume going forward, it's not great. So that kind of makes me have a little bit of a pause here for Notre Dame. But they're at 12 at the moment. So again, I don't feel good about it, but nevertheless, they're here. And then at number 11, barely outside the top 10 is Virginia. Again, I don't feel good about it, but look, they could easily lose to UConn this weekend. So everything's possible. All right, top 10 time. Number 10, finally up there, is BYU. Again, I don't feel good about it. If Texas Tech takes care of business, which I think all of America thinks they will, except for folks in Utah, they will fall out pretty far. Again, their resume up to this point and going forward is basically complete crap. Above them, Texas Tech at 9. Number 8 is Louisville. Number 7, Ole Miss. 6, Oregon. They were off. Georgia, number 5. Bama at 4. They were off. Texas A&M was off at number 3. Number 2, Indiana. And number 1, Ohio State. That's the Tuesday poll. No real big changes except for, I guess, the ACC shakeup. But besides that, not really major movement there in terms of our poll we do here every single Tuesday. And then finally here, we'll get to some Marvel news, particularly surrounding around the Doomsday trailer. So Avengers Doomsday, of course, it's coming out, I believe, a year from now, getting close. They wrapped up the main filming, the segment of filming. I think they started back in like April, I believe, and they went all the way until August or September. So they've been done for a little bit. So the thinking is that they will have a trailer out in December. Not exactly a month from now. I believe the next Avatar film, not Avatar: The Last Airbender. It's James Cameron's Avatar, the Blue People. That'll be coming out, I believe, around Christmas or just a week before. So if the rumors are true, the trailer will be attached to that first, then it'll release online around the same time. I'm not really exactly sure, or maybe it'll release before, but it'll be coming out around that time. So regardless if it's a theater-only exclusive, then it comes out, or maybe it's just or maybe it's both. It comes out before, then it's just it comes out around that week. Who knows? But either way, we should be getting that trailer for Doomsday here pretty soon. And there's a lot of speculation about what this trailer will have, and there's been a whole lot that's been revealed. So This is coming from, I believe, Chris Gore and Christian Harloff. They're both independent people who have different stuff here. And I'm trying to remember off the top of my head what is exactly out there. But from what Chris Gore has mentioned, I guess we'll do that first, and we'll get to Christian Harloff's information he's revealed since then. Off the top of my head here, so I believe Chris Gore mentioned that a lot of Dr. Doom will be featured in the trailer. No surprise, right? If you want to sell this movie, you want to get butts in the seats, you got to show him off, right? Doing a lot of action stuff. Of course, he's a character that's, based in a lot of magic stuff. He's sort of like Doctor Strange a little bit. If you don't know, Dr. Doom is very much so science, technology, magic. That's who he is. So expect to see a lot of that, a lot of action scenes. I think the way Chris Gore described him is sort of the way they're treating him is like a monster, like some of those old Universal monster movies, like King Kong, I guess, would be an example of that. Sort of this slasher villain, very scary, intimidating, kind of like Darth Vader a little bit too. If you want to use like a Star Wars example, which that's kind of who Darth Vader is based off of a little bit. If you don't know, yes, Dr. Doom came before Darth Vader, and I think even George Lucas has sort of mentioned that. So, definitely some similarities there in terms of what you're going to see in terms of the action stuff of him. I think also what Chris Gore mentioned, I think this is about the extent of it, is that the way they're going to set him up here is that you're going to make him sort of sympathetic, that, he's someone that, is a survivor. He's, sort of, I think what Chris Gore mentioned is that his suit, the reason why he's wearing it is because he literally needs it to survive. So you can do all the theories and all the stuff you want there about what is the case. But again, very much so like Darth Vader from Star Wars. Again, he needs the suit to survive. Again, the trailer is probably going to be very much so Doom heavy, and then maybe some of the Avengers and the OG X-Men being featured throughout. So that is interesting at least that's what I'm expecting. But now this is before I heard stuff from Harloff. So again, that does sound pretty cool. Again, I think to get folks sold, and at least get folks sold on the whole belief about Dr. Doom being the villain after they moved on from Kang with the whole Jonathan Majors behind the scenes stuff. Look, you got to do something to sell the fans. And if they do this, give you some cool action shots, maybe do some dialogue of Freddy J underneath the mask and whatnot, I think that would get some folks sold. If it looks good too, which I would imagine it will. Now, moving on from that to what Christian Harloff said about Doomsday trailer, at least more context behind what's being said behind the scenes, not so much what will be in it. I think Harloff mentioned that there's 3 different versions of the trailer. One of them isn't going to include Steve Rogers and Peggy Carter, but it's going to be them as just themselves. So think at the end of Endgame when Steve goes back in time to be with Peggy. They're in the 1940s, I believe, or the 50s, and they're in their house doing their dance and whatnot. That's what I believe he's referring to. So that sort of era of Captain America. So if they're in the trailer, that's what will probably be what I'm assuming they'll show, something like that. So yes, there's multiple versions of the trailer. It makes sense. You may get some cameos, some characters who were rumored to appear, but they'll be confirmed. He also, not really necessarily mentioned or not related to the trailer, but it is kind of an interesting thing about the movie in general is that Patrick Stewart, who of course plays Charles Xavier, or is coming back to play Charles Xavier, came back for Multiverse of Madness. He was there for the original X-Men movies. He's also, of course, Captain Picard in Star Trek. According to Harloff, and this is not confirmed, I'm not sure if this is real or not. I trust Harloff, so I do believe this is real. It's just it's kind of sucks that this is coming out now, and it's not Patrick Stewart and his family coming out and saying this. But apparently, from what Harloff has heard, that this will be it for Patrick Stewart in terms of acting overall. So he is done. So he'll be retiring. So him coming back in the future, not going to happen. Look, with the reboot coming, no surprise, and even with Star Trek too. So he's done with that. So he is going to retire after he's done with. I'm assuming it's both Secret Wars and Doomsday. So it'll be both. But yeah, after these next couple of years, he's done. So which is no surprise, given he is like 90, I believe. So he's definitely up there in age. I believe is that same age as James Earl Jones, and he passed away. Rest in peace. One of the greatest actors and voice actors of our lifetime. But yes, that also happened. Now he also mentioned some stuff about some stuff related to the X-Men, not related to this, but for Marvel, the new X-Men are coming in after the Marvel Disney version. So or the Marvel proper, if you will. So that I'm not covering that here, but he did mention some stuff about that. That was, I think he originally said, or at least he made it sound like it was for Doomsday, but he clarified and say, hey, look, I got that confused with something else, so it's not related. But another thing that did bring up, that was brought up, and I wanted to bring this up again because it's been a bit of a hot topic, is sort of what folks are, who will we see in the trailer? Obviously, besides Dr. Doom. I think for the trailer, and we'll do this some more probably as we get closer, but, look, you'll probably see, like, Anthony Mackie as Sam Wilson. You'll probably get, some of the Thunderbolts cast. Obviously, you'll get the Fantastic Four. Maybe I think you'll get one shot of all of the OG X-Men and potentially some of the ones who are not been announced yet properly that will be announced, I guess, by then. Maybe. So I'm thinking, trying to think who would be actually be in here. Because there's been a lot of conflicting stuff here about who will not be in the movie, who will, and who will. Thinking so, like, for the X-Men, like, I don't know, like Hugh Jackman, probably not, but maybe. What is more likely, I think you'll probably, let me think here. Because, again, there's been so much stuff, so much conflicting stuff, but in terms of the X-Men, yes, I think you'll see, of course, everyone that we have seen announced already. So from, Ian McKellen as Magneto all the way to Channing Tatum as Gambit, coming back from Deadpool and Wolverine, who I believe it is true. That is that same character, at least that same version of that character. So that, however that'll be explained, that'll be explained. So from Ian McKellen to Channing Tatum, all those original X-Men characters or actors who were announced to return officially, I think you'll get a shot, like a team shot of them. Now, as for others that have been announced properly, so thinking here, Halle Berry as Storm, Famke Janssen as Jean Grey, and then Anna Paquin as Rogue. Look, guys, I've been telling you guys, I'm not expecting everyone to come back here, okay? Especially the ones that have been announced. Like, for example, I think Famke Janssen, who played Jean Grey back in the original X-Men movie, she kind of made comments about her returning and saying, look, I didn't get the call. I'm not going to be present. So that one, again, it's actors and stuff. They use different tactics to sort of talk around different things. So we'll see about her returning. I think she's definitely more likely than others. Obviously, Halle Berry as Storm. I think she was the biggest actress at the time when the original X-Men was coming out, the biggest star, I believe, attached to that film. And then you also have Anna Paquin as Rogue. Of course, with Gambit, a lot of folks assumed you would have Rogue. Again, I don't know for sure. That one with Anna Paquin, that one to me is the only one I just don't feel confident about. Given some stuff, again, a lot of it's personal stuff of her. It's some health stuff that's been mentioned over the past year or so. Again, I don't know the whole extent of it. Again, you're getting to some personal stuff and stuff that should be dealt with her and her people. So again, that one I don't know for sure. Would it be great if they get everyone, at least all of the main players from those original 3 movies? I guess technically 4 with Days of Future Past. Yes, I wouldn't mind that. But is it likely? Is it guaranteed? No. Like, no one's guaranteed anything. So yeah. So Famke Janssen, Halle Berry, Anna Paquin, those would be the ones that if they show up in the trailer, that wouldn't surprise me fully. I guess Paquin will a little bit, but the others, Berry and Famke Janssen, yeah, those are probably the 2 ones that I could definitely see them waiting for the trailer if they are in the movie to be in there. And I guess you want to throw in Anna Paquin as well, yeah. So those 3, I think, if those are the characters that were not announced yet to appear in the movie that we see in the trailer, like in a final team shot of the X-Men, I could see that. I could totally see it. But then again, with those 3 women I just mentioned, it's not confirmed they'll be back at all. Again, there's been a lot of conflicting reports of will they or won't they. And again, some of it is a little bit different circumstances for each one. So, and then there's other ones too, like the original actor who played Colossus, not the one that appeared in Deadpool. Of course, you have Hugh Jackman. Will he be in the movie? I kind of don't think so. Same thing with some of the other minor X-Men characters who were in the original 3/4 films. Some of them, again, for different reasons, will be in the movie probably. But yeah, those 3 women I mentioned in particular, again, we don't know for sure. Again, would it be nice if you get all of them back, including the ones that were announced already? Yes, but it's not a guarantee. And unfortunately for someone like Anna Paquin, it's just the health stuff is a real thing. Again, we don't know for sure if it's, that would be a reason why Marvel would choose not to approach specifically someone like her to come back. And look, hopefully I'm proven wrong about that, but Like from what I've seen from some of the Twitter scoopers and leakers, it doesn't seem like that's a real possibility, and it seems unlikely that character will appear. Could be wrong. So we will see about that. Again, once we get closer to the trailer, I'll probably have more time to think about it. But yeah, definitely Fantastic Four. Some of the Thunderbolts characters, Sam Wilson's Avengers. Again, a team shot, probably the final shot of the trailer, probably the OG X-Men, and of course Doctor Doom throughout it. So we'll see. Very exciting times. You have the trailer coming out. Not too much longer. We'll be able to talk about it. Of course, when it debuts, we'll break it down here on the show. So no worries about that. All right. That's it for the show. Again, we're back on Thursday. We'll react, or I guess we'll kind of discuss the playoff stuff, but not really. Again, I do agree with Bud Elliott. The show's stupid on ESPN. Well, no one watches it. Well, literally, no one will be watching because of the ESPN YouTube stuff. But yeah, if that continues, then we'll talk about that on Thursday as well. So, then of course, upset alerts, Bucks, Patriots preview. The Bucks are finally back in action this week. So until Thursday, enjoy the rest of your Tuesday and Wednesday. Of course, we'll be back on Thursday. If anything breaks too within the next 48 hours or so, we'll be back. Not doing a show, but just an individual video. So, yeah, until then, take care, and we'll see you on the next stream.